the mission of MicroConnect is to connect the two things that are currently very far apart. Very small, very promising small enterprises in China, largely, entrepreneurs, and then global capital. And global capital is running out of yield globally, and while those thriving little companies in China are desperately in need of capital, and they bring great returns, but somehow they have not been connected, and we are now here trying to see whether we can make a breakthrough in that very challenging task. But I do believe that today, because of the digitalization of China, that is finally becoming possible. So essentially what we are doing is trying to come up with the right product for the little guy. It's really equity in nature, in essence, but it is revenue sharing or revenue participation in execution. Then we're going to do it through a whole range of technology companies, platform companies, franchisors, and other SaaS to basically reach to all these tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of little companies whose revenue tube is being controlled by many of those companies, which essentially is the head of the ecosystem in which the little companies operate. So we wanted to make sure that we invest in them, but the return are automatically collected by the leading enterprises who control that enterprises, because it's very, very difficult to, invest in very, very huge numbers of small little investment. So this whole thing is big numbers, big number work, but need to be really deployed in a very, very large numbers, because some of them will eventually suffer decline and even failure. But hopefully the surviving larger proportion of the enterprises that we do invest to bring high quality, uncorrelated, and fully diversified returns.
Right. So you're essentially the middleman between the global capital and the small and medium enterprises in China. So in terms of characterization, would you characterize yourself as a private equity, a venture capital, mezzanine finance, or an investment bank?
We are a platform.
Okay.
It's a platform that has an investment arm in it, have a social networking arms on it, connecting the little guy. This is connecting the investors, but in the middle is an exchange. It's a digital exchange that lists the cash flows from every little companies that will be actually receiving the investment, and those what we call revenue distribution rights will be listed. It's another way, as approximate, of a listing of the little restaurants, barbershops, mechanics. All those people contribute tremendously to the economy, and many of them, are able to generate a return of their own invested capital within the first year. Some of them may not survive the first year, but many of them do, and those who do survive are very, very promising investment opportunities. So we're very confident that this platform will allow investors to be able to reach to all these promising, strong little companies, and those companies' revenue will be listed on the exchange, and that revenue is executed in the revenue sharing rather than in the traditional equity that where we'll have to all sit down and negotiate. Because with all these large numbers, we have to do it in the new way, in a digital exchange where everything is transparent every day. So the revenue collection is displayed in a transparent manner every day so that everybody know exactly how a particular barbershop is doing in a particular location. And that aggregate number allow us to intelligently allocate and make investment decisions. So it's, AI will become increasingly important in ultimately making investment decisions.
I see. So it's a private financial marketplace.
Yes.
Located offshore?
Yes.
Outside of China?
In Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong. Okay, which begs a question.
Yeah.
So one of the characteristics of China's capital market is this VIE structure, where especially founders and starters of technology companies, especially, hold different voting rights to other shareholders. Now that is increasingly becoming a bit of an issue. Is that going to be a bit of a hindrance or help to your platform?
Well, it has nothing to do with the platform we are building, because ours is direct investment. every single investment we're making into a restaurant, into a mechanic shop, or into a barber shop is a direct, it's a direct investment with the owner of that little shop. And the money goes into China as direct investment, and will be coming out of China as direct investment. So we are not in any of those fancy structures of VIEs or others. And there's no need to be. And also ours as investment is not credit, is not banking loans, is not fixed income.
Right. Okay. One other question. You talk about digitalization. Increasingly, data is also coming under scrutiny in China. How data, whether data is collected, how it's used, how it's monetized, is now subject to a lot of scrutiny. You can say that the wild growth of the last decade and a half in China's sort of data-related internet industry is probably coming to an end. The regulators are catching up. So again, is that a hindrance or help to what you're trying to do?
Yeah, our data is coming from actual company that choose to take our investment. And as a result of that agreement, they will disclose their financial performances, particularly revenue performances, allow us to display and disclose that investment to the investing institutional investors. So that's not different from a listing requirement of disclosure. So that data angle has very little to do with what we are seeing today in many of the internet platforms, where you're doing business with your customer, with the consumer, and sometimes without the consumer fully understanding, the consequences of that interaction. You're collecting data. Some of them are personal data, private data of that consumer, in order to monetize that relationship. That is what is coming increasingly into the focus of the regulatory scrutiny. Vis-a-vis ours is more a B2B. It's a company receiving information, and we will be, obviously the platform will provide a lot of other data, for the investors to make investment decisions and rely on those data. But those data will be acquired either third party or in the public market. We are not really working with consumers and individuals and trying to really somehow work on their behavior data and to be able to monetize on that. This is really very similar to traditional financial market, where if you take investors' money, you need to disclose your financial performances in order for that investment to be made in an informed manner. So fundamentally different, but I do see the point that is becoming a focus issue in China, and it's probably will remain to be so for a while.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles, for sharing your experience. Thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me. It was great fun. Thank you.